Hello, and welcome back in this second episode. In this video, we will define the different outputs and inputs found in Node-RL controllers. But before we discuss the types of inputs and outputs, an important point must be clarified, which is that there are two types of controllers in Node-RL system for Smart House. The first type contains the inputs and outputs in the same controller or module. As for the second type, the inputs have unique module. And the same thing for the outputs as well. Each type of output has a specified module. If you do not understand, that's fine. I will explain this well in the following. Now let's start with the types of outputs. Node-RL modules contain three type outputs. The first type of outputs is the type switch, which is a simple contact with two states, one normally open and other normally closed, and these states become reversed when the output is on. The second types of outputs is what we call a switch. This output is divided into two parts. The first part represents the main output. It gives 220 volts when it's on and 0 volts when it's off. As for the second part, it is dedicated to the installation of an external two-way switch. It allows controlling of the main output through the system, and I mean phone or other device, and through the external switch too. This output stay in service even if the controller is out of operation or completely turned off. The third type is OC switch output. This type of output is dedicated to controlling motors. It allows controlling 220-volt motors in two directions. And this output is also divided into two parts. The first part represents the main output and it is for the motor wiring. As for the second part, it is dedicated to the installation of the manual control switch, which allows controlling the motor also if the controller is out of service or completely turned off. If we close switch number 1, we got 220 volts in this way, and the motor turned forward. And if we close the second switch, we got 220 volts in the second way and the motor turned backward. Now let's see the inputs. The Node-RL controllers contain one type of input, which is a digital input. If the connection between the 2 points of the input are connected to each other, then this state will be the closed state or the state 1, and if the connection between the 2 points of the input is open, in this case the state of the input is open and that is state 0. Anyway, we will explain in detail how these inputs work in the next videos. That's all for now about type of inputs and outputs. Now let's go back to the types of controllers. The first type is AIO modules or all-in-one. This type of controller contains 4 digital inputs and 4 outputs of type switch. It can also carry 6 inputs and 6 outputs, depending on the need. As for the second type, it is the MSOI type, and there are 4 different controllers for this type. The first type contains 4 outputs of type switch. The second type has 4 S switch outputs. As for the third type, it has 4 OC switch outputs, and the fourth type is dedicated to the inputs, which contains 6 digital inputs. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we will show you how to start a Node-RL module and how to do the initial configuration.